Family and fellow soldiers, I'm the Professor, and this is the Moment of Truth. In a development that will fool absolutely no one, turns out Christopher Rufo, the crown prince of racial hysteria, enjoys visiting and promoting white supremacists online. I can't believe it. I mean, there's nothing about his rhetoric or the people he associates with that would ever lead anyone to think he's a racist. He has a Substack account just like another anti-black racist, Barry Weiss. But on Rufo's Substack, he posts links for his followers telling them to go to a white supremacist Substack account called Aporia. Long story short, Aporia is a toilet of racists who try to claim their racism is rooted in science, they say. They do all the usual, blacks have a lower IQ, commit all the crimes, all of their favorite little lying talking points. Clearly they don't watch my crime reports or the nightly news. They of course try to use pseudo-academic language in the hopes of covering up what is nothing more than garden-variety racism. I guess this is their idea of baffling people with BS. They believe that this makes their racism inarguable, mainly because they don't actually back it up with anything. Now, Rufo is an advisor to Ron DeSantis, as many of you know, and DeSantis also made Rufo an administrator at a college, new school that DeSantis took over. DeSantis' handpicked propagandist is promoting racist online content, and he's also in charge of educating young people. Ordinarily I would say that Rufo ought to be sued under the anti-woke laws that he helped push, but they all got struck down by the courts, so... But Rufo's association with Aporia goes way beyond just posting a couple links. He was on one of Aporia's so-called podcasts. He was pimping his new book, which basically is a confession that his asinine racial holy war is failing. But Aporia has also kept company with other white supremacists. In another of their podcasts, they had a debate featuring Charles Murray. Murray, you'll recall, was the author of the infamous hate tract, The Bell Curve. But there's also another connection between Murray and Rufo. Both of them also work for the exact same right-wing think tank, the Manhattan Institute. Now, listeners to my channel know I've mentioned the Manhattan Institute many times before. Since their creation in the mid-1980s, they've been a non-stop hate engine of anti-black propaganda. In fact, that's the main purpose they serve, to pay pseudo-academics like Murray and gibberish-spouting idiots like Rufo, clowns who can't get work anywhere else because no respectable university would ever hire them, to write all kinds of anti-black racist nonsense, and then they tell Fox News or some other Rupert Murdoch-funded toilet to put them on the air and try not to laugh. Charles Murray came from that organization. So did Heather McDonald, who wrote The War on Cops, or as I call it, The War That Never Was. Douglas Murray and the appropriately named John McWhorter are also Manhattan Institute employees. All of them currently work for the Manhattan Institute except for Charles Murray, though his rhetoric hasn't changed. So you see, the same cast of characters keep popping up over and over. This isn't grassroots. This is AstroTurf. You have a handful of very wealthy white supremacists who fund these little hate websites and the people behind them. From Rufo to Ben Shapiro to Dinesh D'Souza, they all eat at the same slop trough, and that trough is filled by the same wealthy white racists. And when I say Rufo could never get hired by a respectable university, I mean it. Rufo has no academic credibility, but he so wants to be taken seriously in academic circles, you can tell. So when Ron DeSantis carried out his illegal takeover of the new school college in Florida, Rufo finally saw his chance to get to dress up and play academic. Though not as a professor or anything else, because he's clearly unfit to teach tic-tac-toe, much less a college course. So instead, DeSantis made him an administrator at the school, and Rufo began repeating the same white supremacist claptrap he had been peddling on Fox News. And what's the result been? New school has been reduced to a train wreck under Rufo's white misrule. At this point, they ought to rename the place Rufo University. I even know what their motto should be, Rufo University, where failures teach failing. And to show you just how bad they've been crashing and burning, under Rufo's leadership, New School is now requesting $500 million from the Florida state taxpayers. Gee, aren't the right-wing nuts always saying that private schools are the way to go and that you need to keep the government from propping up these schools and that if they can't make themselves valuable enough in the eyes of parents to actually earn their money, then they shouldn't exist? Let the market decide, right? If you need to rely on government welfare to keep your conservative school alive, that means the market has spoken and they don't want it. This is basically right-wingers committing massive malfeasance. They're going to be siphoning money out of that $500 million left and right. It'll be a grab bag of cash for these corrupt conservatives. New School has been hemorrhaging students since Rufo and his ilk took over. Enrollment is way down. What a surprise. The school's dropout rate has more than doubled since Rufo took over. It's the worst retention rate in the history of that school. U.S. News & World Report released their listing of rankings for schools, and New College nosedived 24 spots in less than a year. Having turned what was once a respectable institution into an utter dumpster fire for their vanity project, what's Rufo and Company's solution? Beg Ron DeSantis for hundreds of millions of dollars to keep them afloat financially while they try to attract more student athletes. That's Rufo and his pals' brilliant idea. That's how they're going to fix things. Apparently, they intend to add sports, such as bass fishing, dance, tennis, golf, and rowing. I'm not making that list up, by the way. That's what Rufo and his friends intend to add as sports to the school. Bass fishing, dance, golf. Why not underwater basket weaving? It would be just as relevant. New School already had sports, by the way, and that wasn't making them a go-to school then, even when they had competent leadership. So how will adding bass fishing and golf change anything? Answer, it won't. And Rufo and the rest of the white right love to claim that black students are all affirmative action enrollees and that schools should be able to accept enrollees based solely on grades, and that if the white right was in charge, that's what would happen. Things would get better. The academic quality of the students who enrolled there would improve. Well, don't look now, but Rufo University's 2023 incoming class represents a drop in academic standings compared to the past. New students to Rufo University had, on average, worse grade point averages, SAT and ACT scores. And what's the main cause of this? Student athletes who are being admitted who are getting merit-based scholarships. So the white supremacists claiming that they're going to be bringing in higher academic standards, what are they doing? Lowering them because they're trying to become some sort of sports academy of some sort. The students who are there are leaving, and the school's begging the state to keep them afloat. You know, I'm starting to think that affirmative action wasn't the problem. You wonder why no real college or university would hire a clown like Rufo? This is why. The school's academic standards are lower now than they were before. And that's because he's in charge. You want to know what would happen if the phony academic wannabes at these right-wing think tanks were actually put in charge of a university? You're seeing it. They would overnight become dumpster fires and just state charity cases, begging the government for all sorts of hundreds of millions of dollars that they don't deserve and can't even make use of. Whatever happened to the idea of private schools, and schools having to generate their own revenues based on merit, based on actually making people want to go there? Everybody knows who Christopher Rufo is. Everybody knows what he stands for. And that's the reason why students who actually want an education don't want to go anywhere near Rufo University. Right-wingers, especially in government, are always saying that the answer to making businesses profitable is cutting costs, getting rid of programs and people. Well, the people are abandoning ship over at Rufo University, and he's been reduced to begging the government for money to keep his vanity project alive. But he needs to be investigated for this. That's what the Democrats ought to be doing. Florida taxpayers are being forced to pay the salary of a bigot who promotes and spreads racist propaganda. And this is who Ron DeSantis puts in charge of educating the youth. Every penny of that money that they're taking in needs to be monitored and tracked, and they have to be made to give an accounting for every single penny of it. We already saw that when those Moms for Liberty creeps took over a school district, they made it into a piggy bank for their politically connected pals, giving them contracts based on being white and no doubt giving kickbacks. Like Brett Favre in Mississippi, we see it over and over again whenever these guys are in charge. New School has now predictably fallen prey to the same fate. We will inevitably read in the future about accounts of untold millions of dollars mysteriously going missing and nobody being held to account. But the white right's predictable inability to run an institution is no surprise. For a bunch of wannabe academics, they sure are stupid. This latest revelation about Rufo should have him resign in shame, but he would have to have decency first. So he should be helped out the door by a groundswell of white leftists. But neither the white activists, nor the Democrats, nor the so-called liberal media is making any sort of deal of Russo's racist associations. This guy is supposed to be in charge of running a school, and here he is, freely trafficking in racist content. And why is that? Because these people on the left, they don't really truly disagree with Rufo, not when it comes to black people. The white left only wants to object to the political part of what Rufo does, because that's the only part that inconveniences them, so they go nuts talking about LGBT books in school, etc. They want to leave the racial part of Ruffo's agenda intact because they fully agree with it. It's like Ed Blum. He should have been labeled a vexatious litigant a long time ago, and he would have been if he was going after anyone other than black people. This is how the white left and the white right play off of each other. They work together. But this story merely confirms what everybody already knew. It's the reason that no matter how many pathetic attempts the white right makes at misquoting Dr. King or feebly trying to claim they're colorblind, the reality is they are the most color-conscious people on earth. They don't hide it very well because they can't hide their hatred. Not for very long. If they're going to usher in the white ethno-state that they've always wanted, then they have to be blatantly open about it. They need to bring about dramatic changes, and you can't do that with vague, unspecific platitudes. No, you need bold, racist rhetoric. Sooner or later, they always have to come right out and say exactly what it is that they want, and exactly who it is that they're targeting. They have to declare their racist eugenicist ideology in full. But the truth is that nobody's been fooled. The people who you see claiming to support them do it because they know exactly what these clowns stand for. And they're hoping that they can get away with having these chumps as a more sanitized, public-friendly face for their anti-black racism. They all forget what Europe was before the slave trade, and also forget that after the end of slavery, the Europeans began 2 world wars as they fought with each other to establish which one of them would be in charge. This is why they hate history, because it shows them what they are. The white supremacists hyper-fixate on black people to take their attention off of their own mountain of failures. They invent racial crackpot theories about black inferiority because they're helpless to explain their own failings. Even if they got what they wanted, rather than create an all-white paradise, they would create a pathetic pit of failure, just like Rufo has done at his university. Though that doesn't change the fact that Rufo is an expert on people who need racial privilege just to get by. He's been doing it his entire life. Good day, and be one. I'd like to take a moment to mention some of our contributors. R. Laz, Elaine Zanga Zanga, Dondi Waddell, Shiva Boone, and Dwight Sanders. Salute to them and thank you to everyone for listening, liking, and sharing this message. Black empowerment only exists because of you.